Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. This time, inheritance. Inheritance on It's All Been Tracked Before. Yeah, not Casey May inheriting my position on this podcast, but along the same lines. Hey, something else you can pass on to other folks. You don't even have to wait to die. You can do it now. Pass along. Become a Patreon member. Patreon.com/IBD. Get some great benefits very inexpensively. Just enhance it. Not only your It's All Been Tracked Before experience, but your It's All Been Done radio hour experience. And if you're just listening to us and not to them, you're missing out on a lot. So go listen to those guys too. There's a lot of you can go way back in the archives on both their shows. Just like right now, this is Inheritance on It's All Been Tracked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. We are here to talk about the Next Generation episode, Inheritance, First Impressions.
Maybe that was the intention of how they set it up. You know, they're just having a normal meeting, and I can't remember what her name was. The scientist that stayed behind and said sort of like offhandedly to Data, "Hey, you don't recognize me, do you?" I'm like, "Okay, where's this going?" Because I didn't read the synopsis, luckily. Just which gave away a little bit too much in some ways. But, you know, "Hey, I'm your mother." I kind of saw this starting to build up with the way that she's addressing him, but it felt immediately like a suspicious claim. Mm-hmm. Like it felt like it was a little bit too jarring. It didn't feel like there was, maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention, but it didn't seem like she was giving any other indication of familiarity during the address up until that point. Like they weren't like showing you obvious things like furtive looks or like that kind of, hey, or just nothing. Or at least maybe I missed something. I guess my point being is it felt a little too like they were trying to build suspicion artificially, or at least whatever, make it feel too abrupt.
Yeah, I feel like this episode had I felt like some of the moments fell flat, but some of them were still effective because it's the mom and her android son and some of the similar feelings of abandonment and all that kind of stuff and abandoning and, soon versus soon, however you want to characterize it. But I thought some of the extra contortions we had to go through to get there lessened some of the impact, unfortunately. And I feel like it's weird that I feel like some Data episodes we get there and some we don't. I guess that's kind of like Data's emotion. He doesn't have them, but sometimes he does. So
I will say that I did a better job than usual of sticking to just my first impression this time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Viola Flanagan fan, but this may be one of my least favorite parts she's played. Wasn't a big fan of this episode. I'm sorry. You knew something was up with her, but the twist when it was revealed, and no, I did not know what it was ahead of time. I've read about these episodes so long ago, I don't remember, but I hadn't seen them. It does explain some things about Star Trek Picard season 1 that I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. How does this fit into the universe? And after this episode, I'm like, oh, this all does fit into this universe.
Yeah, that's kind of why I was certain. There's like, wait, did I know that? I didn't know this before. This is done. This, yeah.
Oh, androids can't appear human and think they're human and stuff. I didn't realize they were that advanced. Okay, Star Trek Picard didn't make that up. It was already in this episode. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess it does set some things up later for next gen movies and Star Trek Picard, but I'm also kind of disappointed that they actually build upon them later because it's just like, really? Because this episode is not great. It's like, build upon the better stories. I think this
is better than you're giving it credit for. Which is why I was saying I was sticking to my first impression, but maybe
it is once we talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, they did some things in ways that I was actually genuinely surprised by, and just enough where I think they were teasing just enough where it wasn't quite. I don't know if I'm saying it right. You know how sometimes you have those kinds of seemingly odd or inconsistent things that you're starting to notice, and you think that it just means it's a bad episode, but then they start to some things will start to plug in. You go, oh, that's why they did the other thing this way to make me feel this because that would make sense here more than some of it.
I didn't see the twist coming. I'll admit that.
I was almost there, but I didn't know how far they were going with it. I wasn't quite there.
I knew there was some twist. I just did not expect this one.
I was a lot closer than I thought. I will say. It's hard for me to say that. Oh yeah, I knew it was coming because of blah blah blah. But
yeah,
there were things that were kept like poking at me. One of which Maybe we should back up. I don't know if Stephen wanted to say something first.
Are we talking about her being his mother, or we're talking about his mother being an android?
Well,
her being an android.
Yeah,
is the twist to me.
Yeah, I saw it coming eventually.
Right.
I didn't see it coming right away, but yeah, it was very well. We've talked about this before, and I'm trying to think of the other episodes where it was like this. But like the Geordie episode where his mom's alive. I always reference there's an Action Comics arc of Superman of Pa Kent coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And Superman he's trying to disprove it and figure out why it is, but he still wants to believe his dad's alive. And then eventually it ends up being something, and I think it's happened more than once, but that was the first time I saw the arc. It gets back to the question of, but is it still his mom though? Right?
Yeah. I mean, it is.
But this is all right. That's toward the end. I want to go do the Jimmy thing. I guess try to go back toward the beginning, because I think that's where I can start walking through what was starting to sell me on it or what wasn't. The best thing that I was starting to know was at first, because I've complained about this, maybe you two have as well, the way in which they present Data with or without emotions.
Mm-hmm.
The way that he was reacting to a lot of that opening part felt true to me. It wasn't like frantic. It wasn't anything. It was just, you can see when he's really starting to process something and express confusion. This was just, you've told me this information. I'm not going to buy it one way or the other at this point. I've been through this crap to, these kinds of little things before. I'm just going to go and run this through the lab if you don't mind. I'm going to go verify your story. And he's just going through it like he just, and it took a conversation with Jordy to start exploring that. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I do feel a little something one way or the other. I like that. It was just, that's the way that I would want to see him express not having emotions to something. And I think that they kept it sort of consistent through the episode.
Yeah.
Our friends on my favorite TNG Tumblr.
Passion and Soul.
Yeah. They have a shot of Data's reaction when she says, "I'm your mom." And it says Data, for his part, is about as excited as a freshman at Ohio State when his mom was during the third week of classes just to say hi.
So we meet these two scientists, Dr. Juliana Taylor, played by I never say her name right, Finolia Flanagan, best known for The Others, The Guard, Waking Ned Devine, Four Brothers, and she was actually already on The Next Generation as a different character, if you remember. What? No, she wasn't. I apologize. She was on DS9, not Next Gen. I knew she was in Trek before. She was in season 1, episode Dax.
Yeah.
She will also do an episode of Enterprise later.
That was the hint.
As a third different character. But so then we meet her, and we meet Dr. Pran Taylor, her husband, played by Bill Lithgow, or William Lithgow is credited here. I could not find any relation to John Lithgow, and I don't think he is. He has a very short acting credit bio, similar to our DS9 guest star last week. He only has 11 credits. Best known for this role, according to IMDb, as well as the films Killer Yacht Party, Haunting of Cell Block 11, and The Inner Circle. So, this is like the middle of his resume, but very few roles. He wasn't especially memorable, but he was more interesting than the guest star last week. I'll give him that. Mm-hmm. So I meet them, and his ears, God, the fashion right away. The ears. What is up with that? That was some serious alien makeup there.
It's very Ferengi-like almost. And then actually, Fashion It So says about her hair. One, they say it's definitely a wig. And then they say, are you in space in the 24th century? Or are you an Anne of Green Gables? Because I could see it going the way. Data and Geordi solved their problem right away with the planet. Yeah. And I'm like, credits, we're good here.
That's funny.
And part of that was facetious, like problem solved, but something's probably going to go wrong. But then I was like, then 12 seconds later, we get that's what this episode's about. Okay, I got it, man.
Yeah, this was the personal episode, the planetary disaster, which sometimes comes back to be like a big emergency. Really didn't this time. No, I kept very much a MacGuffin.
Yeah. Also, Inheritance, another generic TNG title.
Oh my God, this title.
This is when Mother and Child Reunion is sitting right there. The Paul Simon song. Come on.
Is there in truth no mother? Is there in mother no android? Data and Geordi, their thing is they're re-liquefying magma, which seems like a major scientific thing that they just do casually on a Tuesday.
Yeah. It's like, it's piece cake.
Our geology understanding is going to come a long way in the next 400 years. That's all I got to say about that one. And then, so we get the moment where Dr. Tainer tells Data, "Hey, Data, do you have any idea who I am?" And we find out she's Dr. Soong's wife, which is interesting because in 7 seasons we've had, we knew Dr. Soong, we knew Lore. We didn't have any hint that there was any other family. So it does feel kind of like a last season, let's just pull additional family out of the woodwork that we've never heard of and never hinted about, which is frustrating.
Right. That is okay. I think that's what was coloring some of my impression at the beginning too. That feeling of, okay, let's get this over with. Yeah, I would say that my opinion improved considerably by the middle or so.
Yeah, I feel it similarly, Keith. And but she might as well have been in a mustache. They might as well just put a mustache on Brent Spiner in a wig and been like, "Oh, yeah, I'm your
a mustache when he's playing his mother."
That's just a reference to George Kirk from Operation.
Oh, okay. I was thinking because
like a figurative mustache.
All of the Soongs look like Brett Spiner because they're all Brett Spiner. So that would be pretty incestuous. Like if he played Dr. Soong's sister, that would be okay. But if he's playing his wife, he shouldn't look like her.
It's like the clumps.
Yeah. Yes.
Wiped Data's childhood memory. That is, I guess we got some reason why, but that seems confusing to me and also unnecessary and also just kind of cruel when you think about it. Just wiping that whole memory of his life before Starfleet.
I think it's sort of like when you're maybe a crude analogy is you're sculpting something and you're kind of cleaning up the room or the area around it. You're moving away all the shavings and stuff and just kind of like, here you go. You wouldn't want to, it's sort of like, it's more like the beta testing mode or something like that. You wouldn't, you wouldn't leave all the comments there for everyone to see. And that's, you know what I'm saying? You wouldn't, in some cases, if you had like the source code, but it wouldn't be like, you wouldn't have that out for everybody to see it like on the surface of.
But I guess my argument would be we find out in this episode that Data is not the second Soong android, he's the 5th. So you've had 4 other androids before him. Do you need to go through that process? If you're just basing him on the other androids you've already had, wouldn't they be the ones that are the...
Well, no, that's why he worked, because there's certain kinds of tests you would have to do, certain kinds of calibration. They might have had to go through that process each time, and if they were getting it wrong, then you would probably not want to skip over things.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
But she was colloquializing the idea of a childhood as like a playful kind of euphemism for what was going on there. Now, in some senses, this is one of the first clues, or again, it feels like they're trying to make her seem too suspicious up to a point. It feels like, I've got an answer for everything. This is because of this and that, because of this and that. And at first it was like, okay, fine. But then she started to seem convincing enough to me. And I could feel that we were supposed to feel convinced by her emotions and so, but sometimes it felt a little too much. Yeah. I think Stephen was alluding at the beginning, something about the way that the scenes were playing out. Maybe for positive or negative, I'm not sure, but.
Well, and even the way she's like, oh, I'm surprised Dr. Soong's dead because it ended badly and I haven't been in communication with him. Feel like a forced. It didn't end up being forced, I guess, because they're like, oh yeah, she would have left him anyway. But if that to me felt like, okay, we're disguising something here. This is our way of making this make sense in the continuity because she's never been mentioned, but they're gonna just
right.
So it felt
right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I know why I took it this way, but I took it as I haven't talked to my ex in a while. What's he up to?
That was great. It was still coming across to me as being reasonably explained and convincingly acted on her part. The way that she was reacting seemed like they would be in line with someone who was telling the truth, at least. And
that's because they hired a decent actress to do this.
Yeah, I know that, but the point is, whether or not it's because of the multiple swerves that were coming up. They were layered swerves, in my opinion, and I felt like this was part of the red herring, honestly. And it was what was getting me past whatever was happening there. I kept trying to let go of that because they didn't want that to be the thing. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm getting at. So what you were saying, Jimmy, I think that is what was going to keep dragging this down for a bit, is that feeling, not just her having an answer for everything, but the writers trying to convince us, hey, we're not just BSing you here. We really are giving you something in canon that is supposed to be real. We've got explanations for this, if because of this, and that kind of data playing the audience for us.
And to go back to the idea of them erasing her memory, one of the things I think I actually liked about the episode, even if it was sometimes really poured on, was equating essentially, that bringing data up was like bringing up a child. So I think
perfect timing.
Yeah, I think the idea them taking his memory away was like it's the Donnie Darko thing where they're like, wouldn't it be great if you could replace all those terrible childhood memories with something positive? And I think that's what they're doing is like, man, some kids, or actually all kids have terrible. Well, if we could erase everyone's junior high experience, would we be better or not?
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Also, I think, Keith, you'll like this, Keith. I also think this is the programmer's way of doing forget. I think.
Yep.
Since I haven't mentioned Requiem for Methuselah in a couple weeks, I think that's what it is also. But I think it is definitely that thing of like, and just to go dive even further into all of our upbringings and everybody listening, I think the whole, parents wanting to protect their children from bad experiences, not necessarily the boogeyman or whatever, but just like other jerky kids at school and bad. And, but obviously it's a part of growing up and it's a part of being alive now too, for that matter, but going through bad things. But parents always want to protect their children from that. And I feel like that's kind of part of where they're going with this too. Whether it's perfectly, I think in some spots it's effective. And actually, I think if more of the episode had been that way, I think it'd been more interesting. You don't even have to make her an android. Well, how about we fully develop her? But I think, Jimmy, you already made the point. It's like, oh, we should have done this like 3 seasons ago.
Yeah.
But
for it to have been more convincing, I suppose. Yes.
Yeah.
I would say that it kind of makes more sense that she would survive, that she would have survived until now if she had been an android.
Yeah.
I think once they started building everything together, or rather when we got to meet Jor-El, essentially, and he explained everything to us in the holodeck. I was hooked then. I was like, oh, that's where I was like, oh my God, this is all coming together in a way that makes a lot of this make more sense than I think it would have, than her just kind of like, I've just been tooling around the universe as a human being, and I escaped this and whatever.
Yeah, we needed that hollow explanation. I will say that. That's my other fashion, though, is Brett Spiner's playing a version of Noonien Sung we've seen before, but a much younger version. So they only did part of the aging makeup.
Loved it.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that was a little bit confusing to me about her android, and again, Picard season 1, that the android will age and die at a normal age. Like they're going to still age and die of old age at a certain point. It's like, why would you make an android like that? I guess because
so we can mention it's human. Otherwise, at some point she's going to, hey, I'm 300 and I still look like I'm 40. What happened?
Yeah.
Well, that's the conceit of do androids dream of electric sheep, right?
I've never.
The Blade Runner thing is they had a time where they would die, time to die. So that was kind of the whole thing.
A time to be born, a time to die.
Yeah. And then there, and we've talked about the flip side of that is, and maybe they got into this episode, but outliving their friends, Superman, Data, C-3PO, R2-D2.
My next one is I did agree with Keith that they finally played Data the way we're told he plays, where he would not have emotion about the situation, because so often he does not come across that way.
Right.
They mentioned that the emotion chip has memories in it, and I feel like that's something we never get followed up upon. That if he has the emotion chip, if only they would put in the emotion chip, they'd get his early memories. At this point, they'd already have to be thinking about when they're going to put that in, because obviously at some point they're going to put it in. It's not just going to be a drop subplot because it's come back multiple times.
Chekhov's emotion chip.
Right. No, it's going to happen in a film. Like they wait till a film, but at this point they're already planning that film. But there's no mention in that film, to get a little ahead of ourselves, of those memories. And so it's like, why even throw that bit of trivia in if you're not going to follow up on it? To me, that just makes the continuity weaker if they don't follow up on that. But
I have a couple opinions about that. Backstage, of course, maybe the guy who had the notes died or left the company and stole it with him or something. Or
well, I mean, this was written by different people than that wrote that film. So
right.
Yeah.
There you go. So there's that. And in real life, that kind of happens too. Sometimes it just goes, well, we didn't get around to it, or it happened somewhere else when you weren't there during this other story.
I mean, I did consider it from a writer's perspective that there really isn't room in that other story to explore that concept. But at the same time, the fact that the concept was raised here makes it weaker, that there's no legitimate way. Like, I would imagine the writers of the movie were like, hey, we have to deal with this. And then they think about it, and they think about it, and they think about it, and they're like, this just doesn't fit in this story. Okay, it's better to make a good comprehensive story than to satisfy all these nitpicky things. But then that makes this episode weaker because they didn't address it in any way.
Maybe.
Even though I agree with their decision to leave it out of the film because it just is not necessary and would not add anything to it.
For the purpose of this, though, right? So it's something felt awkward to me about when she's being overly, I guess for lack of a better, overly emotional toward Data. Those little proud mother things and the whole "I'm your mother" kind of those things are a little forced to me anyway. When you have androids and artificial creations having to have a parental connection of some sort and to do that to fit in, but whatever. It's a universal kind of thing. But I kept waiting for a shoe to drop when they were doing the string performances, and in a way they were. They kept doing something with Data's face, and it was something I was feeling too, but I was thinking something else. I felt like it's, oh my God, he's going to kill her because of this pace that she's keeping up with, and something's going to happen with her hands and something. It's like, oh my God, how is she able to do it this fast at whatever age she's supposed to be there? And it's just like, huh. And
I mean, she's an accomplished musician. She'd be able to do it fast.
But maybe, I mean, that seemed really strenuous both times for that. And especially the frenetic pace with which they were showing Data doing it felt like it's hard. It felt hard for me to believe that she's that out of practice as she's saying that she is.
Yeah.
That is really hard to do, to just like pick it up, and especially if you've been playing in years. So I was like,
but there's the muscle memory. If she used to play a lot, that can come back. I mean, as somebody that plays instruments myself, I bought that part. It's Data's reaction to it that.
No, I mean, I'm talking from me, like today.
Yeah.
What happens if I don't play a guitar or a bass for months? Your hands will not do that. That like just bam. That's just like
no. But
after years, no.
If you play it daily for many years, then years later, and then don't play it for years later, I feel like that muscle memory kicks in. Where if you just play it casually, I don't know what your musician.
Right. You're not listening to what I'm saying. It's not knowing where to hit. It's you physically cannot do it. Your fingers will be too weak. Your hands will be too weak. Okay. Your conditioning, like especially like stamina, doing that for that, it was just like she wouldn't be able to do it that fast. So I kept expecting some sort of like, wow, Data, you're overpowering me. But that was a hint. That was a hint in and of itself. And he pointed out in the way that she shouldn't have been able to like physically do that precisely. That was his first tell, or was that a second tell?
I don't know, but it was certainly part of it.
Yes. Right. Yeah. So yeah, he was saying that there was some physical indication it didn't quite match up. And then also, the performance, it was too mechanical in essence.
Yeah.
So when they were about to fall, I thought the reveal was going to be that she survived. So I was up to it by then. That was my suspicion that something, she had to have been enhanced in some way. And when we saw the broken arm finally that was like lying away from the body,
the fall scene bothered me. That is a big weak point in this episode to me, because if Data believes she is human, as at this point we know Data doesn't believe that, so this could have been to expose her. But in my thinking at this point, I'm still thinking he's human. Data should be saying, "Let me hold you while I jump, or I'll jump and then I'll catch you." The fact that he jumped with her is like Data testing his theory, which is really big risk way to test that theory. I feel like Data wouldn't take that big a risk unless he was really sure, which I think we know Data well enough by now to know he was pretty sure at this point. But
if I may, to make another point I made late in the episode, if you said that to Riker, Jimmy, he'd say, "Hey, no, I trust him. There's no need for us to double check the data.
Oh, I forgot.
I trust him."
Oh, I forgot about that. That was one of my favorite bits.
She might be a woman. She might be an android. I trust him. So back off, scientist.
What? I mean, I liked Riker coming to Data's defense against that stupid husband, the Dr. Pran trainer.
Yeah. I just thought,
I guess we had to see his prejudice against the android to play into the ending of the episode.
Yes,
but
yes.
Somebody should double check it though, right?
No, who's gonna right? All right.
The computer double checks himself.
Right. It's okay. Exactly.
The right. Identity.
wait. I don't think he was being unreasonable under the circumstances. It's like, it's somebody coming to this other office and they're like, hey, this other. It's like, you haven't seen all the episodes we've watched. Is basically what Riker is saying to this guy. Like, you don't know who are we going to have check him?
In any situation is another set of eyes is always a good idea.
But no, I mean,
when magma is involved, I think it's always a good idea to have a second set of eyes.
I'm not saying that. Right. What I'm saying is that they're up there on the bridge. We don't know what they've actually done in this other room, but they probably already have double checked it in some fashion. It's not like they would be that cavalier about it. And the guy is saying, whoa, Data's presenting these numbers. Shouldn't somebody double check him? And Riker's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Because that's all it is.
I guess in that context, but I'm still choosing to accept the way I heard it. Like,
I'm keep on this one.
Yeah, Riker's my annoyance for that. I thought he went a little over the top there.
But I love the payoff of the look afterward when it worked. He looked like that scene of him looking over the side, just like, and it's gone.
I'm actually just lots of these notes I wrote down. As we talk about it, I'm like, they're not relevant for the conversation. I can just cross them off without talking about it. But the one thing I do want to come up with, well, some of them are just like, once we know what we know at the end, a lot of these notes I wrote down earlier are
okay.
Right.
Maybe.
But I do want to put down how quickly we skipped over that she learned she was a grandma and then lost her grandchild. And she gets a moment to show that in her face, but it's never really gone back too much in the dialogue.
Yeah.
In a way, I mean, they do talk about him wanting to still procreate.
Right.
And that opens the conversation for him to talk, or for her to talk about the androids before Data. And I like that part, but I guess I wanted more of the grief and more of the pain of losing Lal at that point, especially like, I lost a granddaughter I never met. That would be really rough.
It was a nice quick moment, but yeah, you're right, Jimmy. And I agree. And they were forcing in so many mother, child, father, divorce, child of divorced parents, everything in there that, yeah, they all got squeezed. And even the whole idea of the sexuality program. And to me, Data's face is like, wait, have I been doing this wrong? So, which again is something we all have to contemplate from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they mentioned Lal at all. I'm glad she came into the conversation.
I did too.
Yeah.
I don't know. My opinion, I think they spent exactly the right amount of time on it. For again, the way they were playing Data's emotions, it is a theoretical artificial child that she never met.
Well, and he wants to do it again, not right. For science, not for.
I think Data spent the appropriate amount of time on it. I think she would have wanted to spend more time on it. That right. Was the point. Yeah.
Yeah, but okay. But realistically, they would want to. Oh God, just want to get through this point.
Sure.
Yes, Data would probably bury it for the moment. They'd go back to playing, and she would realize that it probably wouldn't be fruitful to try to force that issue with him. And would probably think about it silently for a while and then process it until, they've played a couple songs or they're there, and then that other subject would come up.
I guess I was expecting him to press it a little harder and be like, Data, don't you feel anything for losing your daughter? You truly don't have emotion. What about this emotion chip? Let's talk about the emotion chip. I don't know.
But she was one of the people who helped create him, and she would understand how he was supposed to work. We're used to seeing outsiders come in and keep poking at him and getting angry when he's not showing the reaction that they want from him. I think she would know better than to try to. I think her bringing up the other things about him, the other creative things that he was doing, was her way of starting to try to process that. She was starting to examine, well, okay, what is the extent of your programming then? How's this going to work? So then we get the transitions of the art, which then shows the daughter, and then the other things. And no, that's before. It's part of the same through line, but it does come up again. Would you do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Keith. Did you get to where you wanted to get?
For that, I think there's more to it when we get to the Union Soon stuff.
And maybe I'll just stay on the same track. You guys kind of alluded to this earlier, but his Keith, you especially, his reaction, like, you're not my mom. Well, you know what? Let me corroborate this with some other data, which maybe that goes in with Riker being like, you don't think he's corroborated this data? Bridge, scientist.
Yeah.
But
this is a thorough guy. Yeah, it's like, who's gonna check? All right. Hey, Data, can you check that number again? Okay.
he doesn't even.
It's right.
Mom, you think he's just gonna load magma anywhere? Get off my bridge.
Hey, Jordy, can you check that number again? All right. Yeah. Give me 15 minutes. I guess I can get out my paper and pencil and see if I can.
Let me get my imager.
But I guess we're already hitting on this. A lot of parents this season, but it's been a couple years. But is all the talk about Data's programming, and I kind of alluded to this already, but it's the same as, isn't it the same as any child's upbringing, more or less?
Yeah, I think it's parallels, but I don't think it's.
But
yeah, I don't think it's the exact same, but I think there are parallels to be had there.
I know my parents didn't get rid of other kids, but as far as I know. But
I do want to follow up on the 3 prototypes that we've never seen before lore.
Right.
We could. Well, I don't know.
I think at this point, Brent Spiner's too old to play all of those prototypes, but
trigger alert for our listeners and viewers, but my mom discussed the miscarriage she had between me and my older sister. And so that's the only one I know of that I know of, but that's the only one. But I think that's different from what they're talking about. I think this is more of, man, and I don't know if parents do this, because obviously I'm not one. I don't know that my parents did. Well, actually, I know they did. Kind of like, well,
not sure where this is going.
Wrong with number 1, and then we're going to try and prove that with number 2. And then by number 4, they don't care. So, obviously, there's no perfect analogy there, but
if there was only a way to see B4, no, I'm just kidding. Sorry, that's a reference for people that some people will get, but Stephen won't, and I don't want to clue him in. Yeah. So, I'm glad she admits lore is evil, though. That's good.
Well, that's jumping all over the place, trying to feel like trying to determine where I should start, because we're getting into some of this Noonien Soon stuff too. Because one of the problems that I was having up to this point still was, okay, I'm starting to buy with the level of detail that she's giving that these things are accurate, and so we learn that she was an android all this time. Right? What does that mean? What points did this person experience this? Was she always artificial? Blah 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 blah. We get Soon to explain it all, and that's great. That's what I think that's what we needed to that point.
Oh, absolutely.
To justify a lot of the things, and I felt like it's
another great tell, not show. I thought.
Oh yeah.
And Spiner did a great job in that role this episode.
He did. Although very quickly, the Fashion is So folks, here was their commentary about our good doctor. On the day he filmed this holodeck message, he looked in his closet and said to himself, if my android son ever gets this message about how I turned my wife into an android after she was fatally injured, I'd like him to see me wearing a jacket made of some cruise ship upholstery.
Isn't it the same jacket the old Noonien Sung wore when he died?
It probably was.
I think it's the same costume we saw in old Noonien Sung, which just makes me think this guy had one look. He just wore it every day, which most people in the 24th century that we see do, right?
Yeah.
And
they wear the same jumpsuits and stuff.
That reminds me, I don't think the Fashion is So people watch them in order. They just get like, review this episode.
Well, they say the genius. Who was the genius? Steve Jobs. That he just had the same outfit every day because it removed one decision that he'd have to think about.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure Einstein said that first. I mean, there was
did he?
Several other scientists that did that kind of. I just said that's oh god, that's weird.
Einstein did his best work as a patent clerk.
No, I mean, it seems odd to me that I don't doubt that Steve Jobs probably said something like that, but it just seemed I'm pretty sure that what didn't originate with him as far as the quirky scientist who didn't care about fashion and so forth. Anyway,
based on at least one of the movies based on his life, he seemed very fashionable, but that may have nothing to do. Maybe Aaron Sorkin wrote.
A minor fashion note, I'm glad they were so sweaty when they were near the magma, because that's realistic.
Yes, yeah, I would think so.
The conversation about would she have left Data if he was a biological really powerful and made the ending more interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I think one of two things, or maybe these are the same thing, but one is that like the difference. Yeah, because it's the difference. I don't know if it's necessarily an adopted storyline or where they're going with it, but or a step kid for that matter, a kid that's actually your blood as opposed to not your blood kind of a thing.
You're making me want. I thought of this. Now I'm gonna have to look it up. Go ahead.
But I know what you're thinking of because that's what I'm going to next, which is
the movie that
Data got left behind by his two parents. Is it possible he's a Palpatine?
That's not where I was going. Actually,
You think he's a Skywalker?
No,
oh man,
the Macaulay Culkin movie way back when he still looked young, The Good Son. You ever see that?
Oh, you never saw.
Oh yeah.
That's what I started thinking of, especially with lore and this idea of biological that. And
That's good.
I mean, I think she made a good argument though that like I couldn't bear to see you do what happened to Lore and everything, and
right.
I argued against your creation, so because I still have the spear.
Yep.
That all made sense.
Well, I mean, it's like, what are you doing? Lore,
That was good.
Yeah.
Right, and that's when I wrote. She's a scientist first, a mother second. So because she's like,
or maybe a wife above one of those others, because it did seem sort of like her husband kept going, but look. Let's go again. I'm going to try. I'm going to do it anyway. He's like, well, all right.
Or somebody that's just so traumatized that they don't want it. They're going to avoid the trauma in the future, which makes sense and also plays into maybe why she left him.
Right.
Because she realized he'd never change.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. It's Keith to say a wife or AKA person who tells you that's a terrible idea. So
Now, what I thought you were saying about being a scientist first was that the fact that Data even exists was her giving in to the science of it, but I thought it was being coerced by a husband, sort of like a wife going, well, okay, well, he's going to do it anyway, kind of thing. That's what I thought you were going with it.
Sung seems like a terrible husband, but I think we all knew that was going to be the case.
Scientists, what are you going to do?
So my next note that seems a little bit relevant is Crusher sure violates privacy for Data when he's like, let's look at this health records of the transporter, and she's like, I don't do that. He's like, please, and she's like, okay, fine.
That's part of that. You have to say please first. It's in the bylaws or something.
I had this up. He says, sorry, I'm failing. Data, why do you want to look at Dr. Tainer's medical records? Is something wrong with her? I was hoping you'd be able to determine that from her transporter trace pattern. Well, probably I could, but ordinarily I don't check somebody's medical stats without a good reason. Data says, doctor, I'd ask you that you not require me to be more specific. But why didn't you just tell her?
I think, I honestly think at this point, Data wants to be wrong.
Okay.
Or is afraid of being right.
But he's coming for the records anyway.
Because he wants to confirm, but he doesn't want anybody else to think of it if wrong or right. I think he wants to preserve that. Like, it's the Schrodinger's cat thing, right? You don't want to open the box if you're afraid to find out. Right, he wants to open the box, but he doesn't want to clue anyone else into what might be going in the box, which is understandable in my opinion.
That's something different, actually, that type of analogy. But what would it be? The thing, no, actually, there's something similar. There's some overlap. There's like three things involved there. One is the uncertainty principle, because you can't know one way or the other. So there's like the coexistence of two possibilities at the same time, theoretically there, like some sort of quantum thing. The other is you can't measure something without affecting it as a scientist usually. And then there would be the idea of tainting the results by, it's like the biasing the jury ahead of time. Giving you don't want to say, hey, you don't want Crusher to be looking for something specific like that. You want them to find it on their own to corroborate the. I'm saying
that makes sense.
Yeah, what's it called?
Yeah.
Damn it. Well, confirmation
bias. The evidence. I guess. Yeah. Don't bias the evidence.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, what he really needs to do is bring in Odo to do the investigation, but since Odo's not available,
he has to settle for Natasha Leoto. I forgot to say that last week.
I like the detail that the real Giuliano was killed by the crystalline entity, tying that together.
Yeah, I never thought I'd hear about the crystalline entity yet. There it is.
I never thought that I would like to hear about it again, but I like the continuity. TNG has a way of starving you to that kind of thing, right? It was like, oh my god, they did something that talked about something that happened before. And
also, crystalline entity, they're going to be at Lollapalooza on the Saturday this year.
Right? So, yeah.
They still have 1 day, 2 day tickets available. So there you go.
Lots of what is it, like atmospheric, ethereal? I'm not sure how you categorize it.
Yeah.
A light show, maybe.
Yeah, it mixes that with kind of a very thunderous pounding beat, like something like a planet destroyer.
Wow.
I do know from future Trek stuff that Noonien Sung has at least one biological child. So I really wanted there to be some mention of that, and that makes me wonder if she's the mother or someone else is the mother. Given how long she was with him and the era she was with him, it seems like she'd be the mother, but there's no mention of a biological child. So that's almost like a not quite continuity break, but a continuity threat here that later we find out that Noonien Sung had at least one biological child, and we don't know if she's the mother or not.
I think I knew what you would have.
Or if maybe that biological child thinks they're biological, but they aren't, and that could be a whole nother thing.
I'm trying to remember if Jimmy might be thinking of the same thing that I'm thinking, because I think I knew what he must have to be referring to, and I don't remember the details on that or not.
Star Trek Picard.
Right. But like which, I don't want to. Have you watched any of it yet, Stephen?
Eric Soon?
No. But now I am thinking again about her conversation about the real child or the not real child.
So that raises some other questions, other points about that the conversion process. So we have Dr. Soong confirming in the holodeck what had happened. I was like, this makes a lot of sense. He pulled her memories into this, but he would still some of the sub programs were designed to keep her from discovering that she was human. If there had been something about another child being born before that with her, maybe something happened we don't know about, maybe something tragic that he probably would have tried to spare her from as well. He could have edited some things, Yeah.
This just makes me think that Eric Soong is actually artificial and just thinks he's biological. That's honestly what I came up with.
And that gets to this all goes all the way back to TOS episode. I'm not going to get it right. It's one of I think episode 8, I think. What are little girls made of?
Yeah.
Dr. Corbin, Christine Chapel's, love. At the
end. Should have been assumed.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the same questions are in there. And at the end, Dr. Corby is an android.
That's true.
Real person there.
So at some point, I'm going to have to go back and rewatch Picard season 2. I don't feel like I was paying close enough attention to it and go straight through quickly enough, maybe, because some of the it felt like they were playing with some things there with continuity to shoe in certain inclusions. Which, I mean, I guess it would have had to have led to some. I don't know. I don't want to get into it too much.
I think what we're saying is
you got to go back and watch What Are Little Girls.
I think what we're saying is keep this episode foremost in your mind in 15 years when we get to Star Trek Picard. It matters. In terms of the Corby, though, he definitely wasn't part of the Soong line because we see Soong 100 years before this and 300 years before this. And it's still Brett Spiner. It's always still Brett Spiner. So we're going to see older Soongs from previous eras way before Corby would have been alive, and they were still Brett Spiner, and he did not look anything like Brett Spiner. So
Corby?
The last notes I have deal with that last conversation where Data's conflicted about telling her and trying to decide what's best for her, but worried that he's trying to decide what's best for him. And I thought they really did a good job. I like that there were 3 people involved instead of 2, so it wasn't just Crusher versus Troy. I like that Picard also came in with like a different viewpoint. So there were a lot of things to consider. And I think the conversation was handled well.
This is where I was at the beginning, where I was kind of surprised at Jimmy's reaction to the episode. Stephen too. I mean, this is where I was thinking ahead to eventually. I wasn't quite here yet, but this feels like the bread and butter of a Data episode right here. Like this, maybe I think Stephen put it this way earlier. It's something about the twists and turns we took to get there, but once we got there, kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, maybe some of the stuff at the beginning was a little distracting. Maybe a little bit. They were trying too hard to get us focused on that so they could, put this other stuff here. But I thought when this was, I mean, that was really powerful. I thought that ending made up for a lot of things. Just that quandary and the way they were handling it, and I'm surprised we hadn't gotten to this kind of issue before with some of the good Data episodes. Yeah, those are good. Some of the ones about the philosophy of humanity and artificial humanity and life and all that stuff. We started covering that at the beginning, and they kind of dropped it for several seasons. I guess was the closest we came to it. Then suddenly was Riker going, of course he's right. But
do you think Data made the right decision?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what else are you going to do? Like, what would I mean? From my understanding of it, it sounded like that was really going to break her. Honestly, it sounded like it was designed that she couldn't have survived it, but maybe I misunderstood.
I don't think it was that she couldn't survive it. I think it was more it would break her heart that he was protecting her feelings. I tend to think and this is the, I don't know, Rorschach in me, if we want to get a little Watchmen-y, I think the truth deserves to be known by the person it affects, even if it causes them some pain. Let them make that decision about agency. And if I were Data, and you could definitely argue that I was in the wrong, and I admit that argument's definitely there, but I would have told her if I was Data.
I think I went back and forth briefly about that. The idea of, I found out some important things about myself over the last couple of years that, depending upon, it's a matter of perspective, but some people would have considered it to be a positive, either a positive or negative thing to know. And it's just, I don't know. It turned out, in my opinion, it turned out to be a positive thing, something that was useful to me to know. But I can think of other cases where it wouldn't be for some other people. One, if they learned the same thing and they weren't able to, reconcile their worldview around it, or they weren't able to get over like the past traumatic incidents that occurred as the result of having not known sooner, things like that could bog people down. But there's also just other kinds of discoveries. I don't know. Let's say I'd have to think about it for a bit. Maybe it'll come to me in the next sentence while I'm even saying this, but the theoretical idea of there being something that would only cause harm for the person to know. I mean, it's not something that they could use. And in fact, you could see that they might still live the same way, or they might live a happy life without knowing it. Ethically, why would that be better to give them some information that they can't do anything about necessarily either? It affects them, but in a way it doesn't. It's like the knowing would affect them more than the not knowing, perhaps. And there's got to be situations like that.
You're not wrong. I just still would have told her.
No, I can see that too.
Some of the idea that something I've talked about in a lot of episodes, like it feels like they want us to feel like Data does have an emotion chip already working. I mean, not specific, because does he do it if it's not his mother? And I know the way we've talked already is like, he would. Yeah,
I don't think that changes his decision, who she is.
I know that's what we've discussed, but I don't know if in the moment, I don't know if a lay person, we're experts here on the show. I don't know if a lay person would feel the same way.
Well, I've got it. This is something I thought about earlier related to the Nguyen Singh holodeck program. What I also appreciated was that he laid out a very specific set of instructions there. He made his wishes known, and having designed this android a certain way, that's where I got the impression. I felt like he said something in a certain way where it's like, you're designed to have found this because this must have happened.
Right.
And if you were to tell her this, something like this might occur, or would definitely occur. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe that's the reason why there was even like a debate toward the end. I guess there must have been some way to make it work. But Data. Yeah,
I didn't get any impression that the android would cease to function if she knew.
All right.
If you're getting this message, something terrible has happened to the android that I turned your mother into.
Yeah, so Data had that information going in. It's almost like what his father believed his mother would want. This is like a human perspective on, this is a person's opinion of it. And almost like a will for her in a way. But he can't know what the real other would have really wanted necessarily. But then he's approaching the whole the overview of the problem, sort of like a cheaty thing. Here are the ethical aspects of the idea. He could see that he could benefit in some way. He does have some, and this is where they kind of really start pushing the boundaries of what emotions are. He can have preferences. He said that before, and one, they said it in kind of a sloppy way before. The whole thing about like my pathways got used to this thing, or am I thinking of Isaac? I think maybe both. From Orville. Yeah, so I think both of them said something to that extent. They had like a way of dancing around the idea of liking someone or wanting them to be around.
Isaac on the Love Boat had a similar.
But he mentioned being curious about something toward the middle of the episode. And that's something that's sort of like something that was programmed in. The desire to be human, was that like something that's supposed to be in there? I guess the idea of having an android that was supposed to, as part of their AI, try to blend in as effectively as possible. They, in a sense, want to. Yeah,
I don't think that was Data's programming. I think that's just Data's want.
I feel like there's something like one of those conversations with Nguyen way back when. Anyway, point is, he he's designed in some way to seek out knowledge, some sort of curiosity, something. If even for whatever reason he has that motivating factor in his character, that is what he wants, is to have something to relate to in that way, those kinds of experiences. So he was weighing his own benefit of that against what he thinks this other entity would want. But I feel like I muddied the issue. I got sidetracked there somewhere, but
there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, so that's why you would need to have those three people in the room. There are like at least three different ways of looking at that opinion.
Well,
you should value this person's autonomy and trust them over everything.
Yeah.
No, this is you should allow them to be as happy as possible. And then the one in the middle is like, how do you know which one would do what?
Mm-hmm.
Well, some people would say sometimes the truth isn't good. Yeah. Sometimes people deserve more. Sometimes people deserve have their faith rewarded.
Is that us on the transcript site?
That just came into my head while we were talking about the truth, and so I had to track that down.
You can't handle the truth. That's what you're supposed to, the whole law thing. You're supposed to go right to that. Actually, it kind of fits in there, doesn't it?
It does. Actually, I only have a couple other notes. Riker's date is at every arts performance. Same way. I didn't completely corroborate this, unlike Data, but the woman who's with Riker at this performance is with him or Picard at some of the other arts performances. And I mentioned this in a very recent podcast episode of this show. 1,000 people on the Enterprise, and they can still only get 12 people to come to a symphony or a play or whatever. But
somebody's got to run the ship.
Yeah, well,
it's still their ship. They had to like call off, and the other people beat them to it because they know how to work the system. So they got in there sooner. It was
you
like,
say that, but
can't cover you.
200 people were in 10 forward for the bikini contest. So, I mean,
they don't have a bikini contest on the Enterprise D.
Yeah. Yeah. They always know who's going to win. So there wasn't any point. They were just
they just
Riker is going to win. Always.
You guys answered this. Well, actually the episode did, but at one point I'm like, did Picard really just do the open? And then he comes back to that last conversation.
And he didn't even direct this episode. Robert Shearer, one of the regulars, directed.
Should have one Riker then.
Are the Noonien Saints, Noonien Soon, Dr. Thaner rom-com, how they got together, or Data's sex romp as he tries to tweak his sexual programming to get it just right. So those are my children.
Speaking of which, Stephen mentioned having. I don't know if you were being serious or not about your take on what happened there outside of Troy's office. I still saw it as being like just one of those embarrassing. So, actually, it's like one of those. Deanna's mother.
Oh,
but
you're talking about his sexual.
Yeah, but
I want to wear clothes. Oh, that's
what's her name?
That was the
Loxana.
Oh, Loxana. Not just that, being outside of Troy's office and not believing that Data was actually going there for therapy, as opposed to actually like an actual like tryst. She's like that knowing kind of Loxana, like, sure, dear, it's okay. You should be go, that kind of thing. I thought, attempt to be charming or whatever. But did you think that Data? I thought it was his version of being embarrassed, as opposed to thinking maybe I should have been. Yeah,
sort of.
Yeah.
No, was that your take?
I thought it was more to show that even if you're an android with an android mom, parents just don't understand.
Oh, okay.
There was a lot of stereotypical mom stuff in here.
Yeah.
I'd say the last thing I'd say about this episode before we get to the rankings, other than my alternate episode, should just be something about Soong's kids. Like, follow up on it. They're biological or artificial. I don't care. I just follow up on it. Anyway, so the point Keith made, I think, was in retrospect, it all makes sense. And he's not wrong on that point. My counter argument would be, but the episode's not that good until you get to the part where it all makes sense. And to me, I'm like, you could write an episode that's good and then it gets better from it all making sense. In this case, it's mediocre and then it gets pretty good once it all makes sense. It just doesn't rise to the level I would want it to rise. I think it's not as good as it could or should be.
That's fair.
I think it hits a lot of truths is too strong, but a lot of, like I said, emotional moments and mother-child moments. But yeah, I mean, like, maybe this is another alternate episode, but what if she's like, we should talk, I'm your mom. And he's like, what? And then they go and talk for 40 minutes. And there's no magma or any of that nonsense. It's just a mother explaining to him what happened, flashback or not. It's just two people having a emotional conversation about, what happened. So
I'd sign up for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be a very different episode, but I'd sign up for it.
I feel like there's. Sorry, I feel like there could be a middle ground there, but I think
sure.
That's those are. Yeah, that's a strong enough argument that walks me back a bit. I mean, I came out of the episode going, "Oh my god, I want to put this like all the way at the top," and then I can see it's being knocked down a few notches because of it could have been this other thing.
And I can see going up a few notches because you're helping me see that there were some really interesting things about it. But
hey, compromise.
You've moved me up a little bit, but not. Yeah. I think I'm still going to be below where you are on it, but we'll get to it.
I don't know that the amount of time we talk tracks necessarily to the quality of an episode. But
no, we spend too much time on this one.
Because sometimes there are episodes that have interesting concepts that we examine far further than they do, and that's why we end up.
Story by Dan Kopel, teleplay by Dan Kopel and Renee Echevarria. We've talked about Renee before. Dan only has 2 credits at IMDb as a writer. This and The Lost Words, which doesn't even have a picture associated. I don't know if it's a short, if it's a movie. I have no idea what it is. But yeah, there's very little information on it on IMDb. So yeah, very little.
Oh my God.
Resume. Anyway,
that's funny. I would ordinarily make the joke anyway, or might have found a way to get there. But this is really maybe proving my theory. If you think about Dan Kopel and his initials.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Out there
it's a K. It's Dan Kopel with a K. Sorry, Keith.
She's being trickier there.
This does feel like a DC Fontana episode.
I just think like a DC Fontana. So my argument now is going to be you should get a writer that understands the characters better.
Oh,
let Renee Echevarria have more influence, or get some Brown and Braga or Ronald D. Morris on it, or even some Jerry Taylors. Anyway, ranking the episode. Who was your annoyance this week?
I know you guys feel the other way. I'm sticking with Riker.
Really?
Yeah.
Nah, I disagree completely. I'm going to go. Yes, exact. Keith, you and I are on the same page. I thought Pran was annoying, and did not need to be there. The only purpose he seemed to serve was to say, "Yeah, I'm racist against androids," so that adds extra weight to Data's decision.
Yeah. I thought. I think he could have been worse. He was there. He did just enough of what he was supposed to do to insert some of those stakes, and also, I mean, having a husband or a spouse really kind of up the stakes, no matter how he would feel about it. That kind of revelation would.
Did he know she was an android?
No, they're still keeping it from him. So, yeah,
that was definitely a part of the plot. Yeah.
All right. Well.
Okay. Who are you having a drink with?
I'm an android. Don't tell me.
Right, who are you having a drink with? You are not, Steven. No, you're not.
All right. Cool. Good.
Wow, that's tough, actually.
I'm having a drink with Data's mom.
I feel like, I don't know, maybe probably holographic soon. I think I would want to talk to him. He's got some answers there, apparently. He's actually programmed to give answers. So
there are only answers for Data if he found that his mom's an android.
No, that was, he unlocked a special level. He actually said that. It was like, whoever you are, you must have found this chip. So you probably have some questions. It was like, oh, you're Data too? Oh, well, pull up a chair. I've got. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having a drink with Data. He's gone through some stuff, and even if though he's not going to say it affected him emotionally, and we'll have a very wooden conversation, I'm still choosing Data. Though I think Hollow Sung is a really good choice. Yeah,
I'm going to tell him I'm Data. I'm just going to say, hey, my name is Data. He's like, oh, your name is Data? Cool. Here's all this secret information.
I mean, I like to think that wouldn't work, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You know.
Well, all right. I thought of that simply because he didn't recognize him immediately. So there had to have been some sort of like confirmation, like, okay.
Could have been a voice pattern or something.
Yeah. You're at least aware that I have someone named Data that this might work for. So that in itself was probably confirmation, but maybe he does some extra kind of scanning that we aren't seeing, but who knows?
Is it Ghostbusters? Is it? Are you the gatekeeper? I have a friend. Are you the
Keymaster?
Yes, I am.
Keymaster, yes.
Yeah,
Keymaster, that's it.
Yeah.
Keymaster, yeah.
I am going to start relatively high because the season's been so bad. And as I'm looking at the list, I'm like, yeah, we got to start high on this one. Otherwise, I don't know where we're going on it.
This is what Stephen, we should say that you would need to drink a certain amount before
Yeah, we're going to go way up if I don't start high, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Let's go with Gambit Part 1. Picard Kidnap.
Oh, right. I remember thinking that was better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Actually, it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
We have Part 2 ranked above Part 1, just above Part 1. So we can consider both parts as we do this, but I think I want to go below Gambit.
I think you talked me under it just barely. I mean, simply because I think part of it too was my having been happier with that episode than I would have thought. And something similar happened here, but I think that it was much more dramatic for the Gambits.
What's above the Gambit or Gambit?
Liaisons. That
Something.
would Worf, Troy, and Captain deal with 3 aliens who have the extreme emotions.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
That's number 1 for the season so far.
Wow.
Yeah, this season's been bad.
Huh.
Okay.
I feel like I might put Gambit above that actually, or the Gambits.
Well,
But,
we ranked them below it.
Yeah. All right? So what's under Gambit then? 'Cause I mean,
Descent Part 2, which I hated. I would put this above that.
yeah. Yep.
I mean,
That was a season premiere, right?
Yeah, I think we definitely
and-
get better lore and soon and all their entire Data family stuff. Yeah.
So below Gambits, but above Descent.
Yep. I suppose it's easy enough.
The Sunni bunch.
This title's dumb. Anyway, I had to look up what the title was again, even though we've been talking about it for over an hour now. Next week, Deep Space Nine, Second Sight. While noted scientist Gideon Setiatic is preparing for an ambitious project, reigniting a star, Sisko is intrigued by a woman who keeps disappearing. Ooh. Until then, live long.
And call your mother. And prosper.
Prosper. Oh, man. It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?